Hello, my dear friends. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. And I want to make just a couple of brief announcements. First of all, the internment ceremony for Robert Wayne will be immediately following this funeral service, and it'll be at the Mount Carmel Cemetery. There will be a processional. You can just get in line with the processional and follow the instructions from the officers there. If you would wish to be part of the processional to go to the cemetery for the interment. The family will be having 2 evenings of Shiva services at the chapel at Village Shalom. And so tonight and tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock p.m. So there was a change in time from the first announcement to the second, so I want to make sure that everybody knows that. It's at 7 o'clock p.m. tonight and tomorrow evening, and it'll be at the chapel at Village Shalom. The psalmist writes in Psalm 15 words that could have been written for Robert Wayne. Mizmor LeDavid, a psalm of David, O Lord, who shall dwell in your sanctuary? Who shall abide upon your holy mountain? He who lives with integrity, who does what is right, who speaks the truth in his heart, who has no slander upon his tongue, who does no evil to his fellow man, who does not reproach his neighbor. In his eyes a vile person is despised, but he honors those who revere the Lord. He takes an oath even to his own harm, and does not change. He does not lend money at usurious interest. He does not take a bribe against the innocent. Whoever does these things shall stand firm forever. We have 3 family members who will deliver words of memory about Bob. I'd like to begin by inviting up his beloved son-in-law, Scott Kriegel. Please share with us some words.
Bob was my father-in-law, and because of that and the fact that I started dating Susan when she was 15 years old, I can honestly say that I knew Bob fairly well. I've always been close to both Bob and Jeanette, even while I was stealing their young teenage high school sophomore eldest daughter. They encouraged us to have Friday night Shabbat dinner at their home, where Jeanette would make her special steak, and Bob would watch David and I fight over the last kernel of her famous brown rice. The family dinner table on Friday night was not a quiet place to contemplate the arrival of Shabbat. Poor 9 or 10-year-old Karen watched quietly along with me as Bob, Jeanette, Susan, and David would have the loudest, let's call them discussions, ever on the face of the earth. At that time, the most popular sketch on Saturday Night Live was called The Family Loud, and which adequately described the scene. Didn't scare me off, though. During those years, Bob was amazing. He was attentive to his parents, Frank and Rose, while at the same time very active at Best Shalom. He's head of membership for many years. An avid golfer, active in leadership at Meadowbrook Country Club, tons of friends, including dinner groups, at least 2 card groups, and of course raising 3 kids, each a challenge in their own way. Bob has always been a social animal, ever since I've known him. He seems to know everyone and always sat on an aisle seat at the synagogue to greet just about everyone who would pass his way. He even did this last month, first day of Rosh Hashanah, which was his last attendance at Beth Shalom. He was terrific. He would say hi to just about everybody. He was always unbelievably proud of all his grandchildren, talking about my kids, but also reciting the accomplishments of Ashley, Courtney, and Heather all the time. He was a big Chiefs fan. Many of you may not remember, but he used to take me to Chiefs games all the time. He had these special seats in the end zone where he could watch the plays develop, and actually taught me a lot about football. Even last week, I was taking him to the doctors, and he had advice for the Chiefs on how to solve their failing season this year. He was the only 87-year-old that I know that was computer literate. He was an avid emailer to his children and grandchildren, sometimes with jokes, sometimes just to encourage communications. Early on in the computer age, he and Jeanette spent a month in Phoenix every year, and he used to tell people not to email him for 3 days while he was driving to Phoenix, because he didn't want to, he wouldn't have his computer plugged in, and he might miss the message. He eventually laughed at himself for this, but the fact that is, for the last 20 years, he has taught himself how to use a computer, not only for jokes, but to manage his personal finances. He did that all himself until the last couple months. I really respected him for never losing his desire to learn. Towards the end, whenever he visited the doctors, he was still very social, talking to all the nurses. He knew all their names. And with each new nurse, he'd ask their name, he'd find out something about them, and ask them the next time how that child was doing, how a relationship was going on. He was truly interested in people. He always had a joke, even if he felt horrible. He loved making people smile. When Susan and I were trying to pick out a picture of him for the obituary, being a photographer, I had hundreds of files to choose from. And what amazed us, that there was hardly a bad picture in the group. He always had a smile. In the coming days, when you think of Bob, think of that smile, and you won't be able to keep a smile from growing on your own face.
Thank you, Scott. Now I'd like to invite his granddaughter, Courtney Green, to share some words.
There's a lot of people here. I wanted to say something that I actually called and told my mom the other day, right after Grandpa Bobby passed. I called her on Monday when I was running some errands in my car, and she sounded really flustered and upset because she was, planning the funeral, and it was just really hard. And I said to her, Mom, I wanted you to know something that made me feel better. I genuinely do feel like Grandpa was ready to pass. He died a very happy man with a very happy family, which is all he ever cared about. I think he would love to see how much the family has done for each other this past week. I also thought his family and friends would like to know that when I went to bring Grandma some flowers to Village Shalom, the front desk woman, she asked me who the flowers were for, and I told her that they were for Robert Wayne's wife, and she started crying, and she said she doesn't have many favorites, but that he was definitely one of her favorites, and that she'll miss him. And I just kind of wanted to tell my family that I think Grandpa would be proud of us for this week. I think that we've proved to be stronger than we thought that we were, and we've held together and celebrated one of the most special lives in this family. This is a moment that's made me love my family more wholly than ever before. Grandpa Bobby had my heart for 21 years, and in the words of a wonderful man himself, and many, many more.
Thank you, Courtney. And now Stephen, his grandson, is going to share some words as well.
There are a lot of people. Thanks. I just wanted to mention a few words about his sense of humor, which is really personal to me because, like him, I kind of can't help but try to make jokes at all times, whatever reason. So for anybody who's ever met him or spent any time with him at all, you know that he liked to spread his joy and tell jokes. And as somebody who does that, or who tries to do that a lot too, it's the desire to do that is you get a lot from it. You can get acceptance from it. You can get, somebody else to smile. You can make yourself feel more comfortable. But it's also a truly selfless thing to add humor into the world and to other people. so that's good. For us grandchildren, we know nothing will ever replace his jokes or his laugh. Nothing will replace that laugh ever. Or his birthday messages, which he would call at 6 a.m., some ungodly hour, sing happy birthday loudly, slowly, methodically, every birthday without fail. And whether you would sing back to him or hang up, it wouldn't work. Call back when you get it. Humor is the ability to empathize with somebody and to understand at least a small way of how they view the world, and to be able to turn that on its head just enough to make them laugh and make them happier. And I think if Grandpa Bobby has taught us anything, it's that it's also a form of alchemy, in that you can take something that is meaningless or something that's trivial or tragic or sad and make it into gold and make it into something better out of nothing. And I think that's one of the best parts about being human, and it's what Grandpa Bobby has taught us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Stephen and Courtney and Scott, for all of your beautiful words and adding to our memories and our smiles. We're here to say goodbye to Robert Wayne, Bob, to so many of us whose absence will be ever present in the lives of those who loved him. A new rabbi to Kansas City, I met Mr. Wayne several times, both at synagogue, where he came regularly, as well as to the board meetings of Congregation Beth Shalom, where he was a strong presence. Though he was one of the oldest members of the board, he was as sharp as any other member sitting around the table. He was very proud of the fact that he was named as a lifelong board member of Congregation Beth Shalom. And not only did Bob have razor wit, bringing a smile and a laugh to his partners on the board, he wasn't just a jokester and just funny. He really brought very thoughtful insight. Though I only shared a meeting or two with him, he was very insightful, specifically about how the synagogue would treat the elderly and what our role is as a synagogue in reaching out to that vital segment of our population. About a week after the first board meeting that we shared, I had been on the job for about a month, maybe less. He calls me in my office. Took the call, of course. He says, "Rabbi," he said to me, "I want to send you my eulogy. Is that okay?" This is the first time this has ever happened. I've been a rabbi for over 11 years, and no one has ever called me with that. And I was a little bit taken aback, and I said, "I've written my eulogy, and I want you to deliver it exactly as I've written it. I figure that nobody knows me better than myself." I said, "Mr. Wayne, I hope that you don't have any plans to use this anytime soon. Do you have any plans that you want to share with me?" "Nope, but I'm a Boy Scout, and our motto is be prepared. So I just want to be ready." And I said, "Okay. Is it all right if I add any of my own thoughts or insights?" "That'd be fine," he replied. "Just don't be too long, Rabbi." So I'm now going to read to you Bob's eulogy that he wrote for me, and this is the second draft. He sent me a first one. I'm not joking. He sent me a first draft, and 3 days later he called me back with revisions, and so this is the revised edition of his eulogy. And I apologize in advance to the family that I didn't show it to you ahead of time. You come out okay, though. Robert Wayne, September 7th, 1925, date of death to be inserted. I am writing this because nobody knows me better than myself. I was born September 7th, 1925 to Frank and Rose Furman Wayne. They taught me right from wrong. Services will be at Lewis Memorial Chapel, 6830 Troost, Kansas City, Missouri. Burial at Mount Carmel Cemetery. I didn't even have to make announcements. He has everything here for me. I graduated Paseo High School, where I was active in clubs, sports, debate team, and was a member of the National Honor Society. While here, I joined the Ambassadors, a group of friends from Beth Shalom and the Jewish Community Center. We met regularly until our later years. I was also advisor for the Cavaliers, a similar group several years younger. The Cavaliers are still active today. I was an Eagle Scout and fire builder in the tribe of Mick-Osay as a member of Boy Scout Troop 61 and attended Boy Scout camp in Osceola, Missouri for several years. Did I pronounce that right? Osceola, sorry. I attended the University of Missouri for 1 year before I enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps and reported to Keesler Army Air Base in Biloxi, Mississippi on my 18th birthday on September 7th, 1943. As an aside, that was where I did my student pulpit, was in Biloxi, Mississippi at Congregation Beth Israel or Beth Shalom, the conservative Jewish congregation in Biloxi. So it's very likely that we share two synagogues in common. I was a flight officer and a bombardier navigator trained to fly B-29 aircraft. I had orders to report to Lincoln, Nebraska, and join a B-29 crew for service in the Pacific. My orders were canceled with the end of the war, and I was discharged October 30th, 1945. I went back to Mizzou, where I was a member of the Sigma Alpha Mu fraternity and graduated in January 1948 with a Bachelor of Science in Business. I received postgraduate training at the American Institute of Laundering in Joliet, Illinois. I graduated summa cum laude. I didn't add it in, guys. He put it in there. The family shared that with me. It was in an earlier version of the obit that didn't make it to the paper. But when he cut it from the obit, I think he inserted it into the eulogy. I joined the family business, Wayne Towel and Linen Supply, where my father, Frank, soon asked me to head the company. I was active in our national association, where I spoke at several national conventions, chaired the wastewater committee, became a director of the organization, and a member of the executive committee. At age 29, I met the girl I wanted to spend my life with, and I married Jeanette Miller on October 24th, 1954. We had 3 fantastic children most of the time. Susan Kriegel and husband Scott, David Wayne and wife Melody, and Karen Green and husband Jerry. Our children gave us 6, which has become 8 awesome grandchildren, awesome all of the time. Laura Pabst and her husband Ben, Ari Kriegel and his wife Beth, Stephen Kriegel, Ashley Green and her fiancé Mike Italia, Courtney Green and Heather Wayne. Our grand prizes are our 3 most marvelous great-grandchildren, Nora, Harry, and Riss Pabst. I didn't realize how smart my kids were until I met their spouses. They could have never done better. We have the greatest family. We meet all the time to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries. There is nothing but love and respect for each other. How lucky could I be? I was a charter member of Meadowbrook Golf and Country Club, where Jeanette and I enjoyed many rounds of golf and had a fun social life there. I was on the board of directors, served as vice president, and was chairman of the golf committee. We sold Wayne Towel in 1986. I did a lot of volunteer work afterwards. We moved to Normandy Place in 1988, where I served as president 3 times, was grounds chairman, helped collect dues, and was in charge of house painting. We had a lot of good friends there. I have belonged to Congregation Beth Shalom for so long, I can't remember when I joined. I was a member of the Congregation Board of Directors, a life board member, and served on many committees. I enjoyed driving for Jet Express, a transportation service for the elderly of the Jewish Family Services. I really enjoyed my years with the Romeos. They made me the official joke teller. I like to make people laugh. I was predeceased by my parents, Frank and Rose Wayne, our son Stephen, and my brother Howard. I want to thank Doctors Jacobs, Davidner, Langley, Bach, Berenbaum, and Ginsberg. I also want to thank the staff of the Kansas City Cancer Center and the Leawood Dialysis Center. You added years to my life. I also want to thank the entire staff of Village Shalom. You are great. There are 73 of you, and since I am paying by the word, thanks to each of you. I love flowers, but if you wish, please make a contribution to Congregation Beth Shalom or Village Shalom, and to all, Shalom. I have to say, this is a first for me to read the eulogy written by the subject, and it's very touching, and it's very moving to hear. It's one thing to sit with somebody at their bedside and to hear them talk about their joys and their regrets, but it's another when they really take the time to craft something about themselves, for their family, and for the friends who they've loved so dear. I do want to share a few thoughts with you, but don't worry, I won't disobey the wishes of the deceased and won't go on too long. There's little that I can add to Bob's own words about his life, his accomplishments, or the passions that kept him going. However, there are a few qualities that one can perceive from the outside of another's life that are sometimes difficult to appreciate when you are the one living it. First of all, as you heard from his son-in-law and his grandchildren today, Bob had an absolute zest for life. It was contagious. Until the end, he was as sharp as can be. The reason why I was incredulous that he was writing his own eulogy was, though he was elderly, he seemed, to the outsider, to be in great shape. His wit, his humor, his love of life belied the real health challenges that he was living through, and I was unaware of any of it when he called me. And he didn't share those troubles with me. He only wanted to share the positives and making this day a celebration of his life. And he didn't want to focus on, obviously, the real pain and illness that he suffered, because he shared none of it with me. So unless you were privy to his challenges, you would be as oblivious as I was. This week were the Jewish holidays of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, the conclusion of the Jewish holiday cycle in the fall, which is why this funeral was delayed longer than is traditional within the Jewish community. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me during the holidays to tell me how much they loved Bob and how much they would miss him. I received more than a story or two as well. Unfortunately, though humorous, these stories would not be appropriate to be told by a rabbi at a funeral. The other accomplishment of Bob's life that I want to mention is his family. His family. You, his family. Though Bob talked about his family in his own eulogy, and though he did go on about them, he actually was too modest. More than any fortune, more than any company, more than any house, the most important thing that Bob built in his lifetime was you, his family. This family is a group of people who have learned Bob's values, and they live out his priorities. They are tied together by an inseparable bond that was woven by Bob and Jeanette in their lifetime together. Every family member spoke to me when we met as a family about the birthday phone calls, about the importance of getting together for happy or sad occasions, and how family was the absolute number one priority in his life. And you could tell by the repartee amongst the family members that his wisdom and his wit was successfully passed on to future generations. Though Bob will be so deeply missed within his family circle, he left you with the greatest legacy a patriarch could leave: the relationships that you have with one another. I want to close my words with the words from Perkei Avot, the wisdom of our sages. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosha Ketarim Hem, Keter Torah, V'Keter Kehuna, V'Keter Malchut, V'Keter Shem Tov, Oleh Glabehen. Rabbi Shimon used to say, there are 3 crowns that a person can have in their lifetime: a Keter Torah, a crown of Torah, in other words, a crown of knowledge and of learning; a Keter Kehuna, the crown of priesthood, in other words, of religious leadership; and a Keter Malchut, a crown of kingship, which is political or communal leadership. But the crown of a good name rises above them all. The Robert Wayne had all of these other crowns in his lifetime. He had the crown of knowledge. He had the crown of religious leadership in the synagogue. He had the crown of communal leadership in every organization that he was so honored to serve. But the greatest crown that he earned, as testified by both his family and his dear friends, was the crown of a good name, a Shem Tov. And in this, he will always be remembered. We pray that God should always bind up Bob Wayne in the bonds of an eternal embrace. It should grant comfort to all those who loved him and who mourn today. And let us say, Amen. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai ro'i lo echsar binodesha yarbitzeni al mei menachot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech begetz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sororai. Dishanta v'ashemen roshi kosi rivaya. Achtov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai. Shavti bevet Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on paths of righteousness. He revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in the sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. We rise for the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim shochein bamromim Amatzei menucha nechonatach at kanfei hashchina B'ma'alot kedoshim u'torim k'zorah ki amasirim En yishmato shalach le'olamo B'gan eden tehei menuchato ana bala rachamim Asirei b'setek nafecha le'olamim Utzru b'tzurachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato V'yanuch b'shalom mishkavo V'nomar Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure. To the soul of Robert Wayne, who is gone to his eternal home, Master of mercy, we beseech you. Remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. God is his portion. May he rest in peace, and together let us all say, Amen. The service will continue with the internment at Mount Carmel Cemetery.
Those serving as pallbearers, if you please step forward.